Chapter 31 7 Colorful Poison Sutra. Ziyunyi. You are listening at novelfold.audio. The cave was silent, a faint chill permeating the darkness. The little medical fairy rubbed her arm, feeling the goosebumps rise. She glanced at Xiao Zhe's strong back and quickened her pace, drawing closer to him. The torch offered meager light, barely enough to make out their surroundings. The little medical fairy's mind raced as she stared at Xiao Zhe. What does he really look like under that mask? Lost in thought, she didn't notice when Xiao Zhe suddenly stopped. She bumped right into him. Their bodies pressed together. Xiao Zhe froze, feeling the unexpected contact. The little medical fairy stumbled back, a blush creeping up her neck. That impact just now had to have made a serious impression. He definitely felt that she felt a surge of shyness, but after that awkward hug when they fell off the cliff, she recovered quickly this time. What's wrong, Xiao Zhe? Why'd you stop? Xiao Zhe coughed. We've reached the end of the cave. Were you even paying attention? I called out to you. You were so lost in thought, I had to stop short. Oh, I was just distracted. Her pretty face flushed slightly. Seeing that Xiao Zhe didn't mention the little incident, she played along. She turned her gaze to the end of the cave. A stone door pulsed with a faint yellow light. Looks like the real adventure starts here. She hurried to the door. This has to be the entrance left by someone who came before. Xiao Zhe joined her. He remembered it was a machine door, and the switch should be hidden nearby. Using his senses, he quickly located it. The little medical fairy was already frowning, trying to figure out how to open the door. Xiao Zhe simply kicked a slightly raised spot, and the stone door groaned as it slowly slid upward. Whoa! Xiao Zhe, you're amazing. You figured out how to open it so fast. She turned to him, her eyes wide with surprise. The firelight danced in her wide eyes. They sparkled, filled with admiration. I just have good senses. Don't be so modest. You seem to be able to do anything, Xiao Zhe. She said earnestly, ticking off items on her fingers. Your physique, what happened in Qingshan town, this door, it's like you can solve any problem. Okay, if you keep praising me like that, I'll get a big head. Let's go. The doors open. Let's see what treasures our predecessor left behind. They entered the stone chamber. Piles of gold and silver were scattered haphazardly on the floor. Looks like this guy didn't care much about money, the little medical fairy mused. Maybe there's something even more valuable, Xiao Zhe replied, scanning the room. In the center, there was a table and chair. A skeleton sat on the chair, and 3 boxes rested on the table. Besides the gold and silver, there was a flower bed filled with rare medicinal herbs. Wow! Azure leaves, white ginseng fruit, snow lotus seeds, so many high-end ingredients. And is that ice spirit flame grass? It's so rare, that she ran over excitedly, naming each herb with precision. You were right, Xiao Zhe. These herbs are worth more than all that gold and silver combined. Go ahead and collect them. I'm going to take a look around. Okay. She replied, pulling out a jade shovel. She carefully dug up the herbs and packed them away. Meanwhile, Xiao Zhe retrieved 3 keys from the skeleton. He also found the remaining part of the pure lotus demon fire map, but it was still too early to worry about that now. After a while, the little medical fairy, her face glowing, came over and nodded. Ready to open the treasure chests, Xiao Zhe opened the 3 boxes one by one. Inside were the 7-colored poison sutra, the Xian level advanced flying skill, azure cloud wings, and the Xian level advanced fighting skill, mad lion's roar. Little medical fairy, this 7-colored poison sutra is yours. I told you before, I'm not into poison. Okay. I don't really want the other 2 fighting skills. They don't match my style. She happily took the sutra and started reading it immediately. Xiao Zhe glanced at the azure cloud wings and mad lion's roar. Since there was no immediate danger, he decided to stay in the stone chamber and train for a while. He could even stay here until they returned to Wutan City. The place was hidden and safe. No one would find them here, except maybe some flying monsters. They each found a corner to practice. Xiao Zhe unrolled a black scroll, depicting a pair of lifelike wings. A faint breeze rustled the feathers. Mastering the azure cloud wings wouldn't be easy. It contained the soul of a 5th-level magic beast, the black flame azure cloud eagle. Even though it was only an unconscious beast, it was still a force to be reckoned with. Legend had it that the eagle carried a diluted lineage of the ancient phoenix, granting it incredible speed. In the original story, Xiao Yan could withstand the soul impact due to his strong will. With Yao Lao's help, he held true to his heart and avoided becoming a mindless killing machine. Xiao Zhe was confident in his own soul strength, which was definitely higher than average. Plus, when he leveled up to fighting master, the system's reward strengthened his soul even more. He thought he could handle the soul impact this time. After carefully studying the scroll, Xiao Zhe called over the little medical fairy. "What's up, Xiao Zhe? I found something in the 7-colored poison sutra about a calamity poison body. It's just like you said." She came over with the sutra. But she quickly realized she'd said the wrong thing. "Xiao Zhe, I'm not doubting you or anything. It's okay. The poisonous body might be rare, but it's not unheard of. I wanted to ask you to keep watch for me while I try to master this flying skill." "Okay." She put away the sutra and stood guard. Xiao Zhe touched the wings on the scroll. A soul impact surged through him. Just as he braced himself for a battle, he realized the impact wasn't so bad. When he received the 100-fold feedback from the calamity poison body, he'd experienced agony beyond imagination. His resistance to this kind of assault had improved significantly. Now, facing the violent soul, it felt like a breeze. After a few moments, the impact faded. Xiao Zhe didn't hesitate. He dived straight in. He didn't have a lot of energy to resist this impact. He had to finish this quickly. Aqua-blue fighting spirit enveloped the wings on the scroll. The wings glowed with purple and black light, growing brighter and brighter. Finally, like lightning, the light flashed into Xiao Zhe's palm. 2 small nodes began to form in his body. The intense pain washed over him like a tidal wave. Chapter 32 Take off on the spot. Go back to Wutan City. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ziyunyi's training hinged on 2 major challenges. First, his own capabilities had to be up to par to withstand the soul shock from a 5th-level monster. Second, he needed incredible endurance because the training involved opening 2 new meridians. In the original story, even Xiao Yan, with his powerful soul and will, passed out from the pain. But Xiao Zhe was different. He could take it. Pain washed over him like a relentless tide, but Xiao Zhe remained unyielding. Time ticked by, and those 2 new meridians gradually formed on his back. The pain eventually subsided. Xiao Zhe opened his eyes to see the little doctor fairy watching him with concern. "Xiao Zhe, are you alright? You seem to be in agony just now. Did you master the technique? The writing and wings on the scroll are gone." Xiao Zhe stood and stretched his stiff body. "All done. This flying technique is pretty unique, a one-time use deal. Once you learn it, the instructions disappear." "I see." The little doctor fairy nodded, never having heard of anything like it. "So, can you actually fly now?" she asked, realizing the implications. "That's something only Douling experts can do, but you can too." That the Douqi continent had a strict hierarchy, where only the strongest Douqi users could hover briefly. True flight was reserved for the elite. Wings of Douqi soaring into the sky. Let's find out. If I can, I'll take you for a ride. Xiao Zhe grinned and pulled off his shirt, exposing his upper body. Hey, what are you doing? The little doctor fairy quickly covered her eyes, surprised by his sudden striptease. You said you wanted to test the flying technique, so why are you taking off your clothes? She exclaimed, flustered. Even with their past intimacy, this felt a little too forward. What are you thinking? I just don't want to ruin my clothes, these are the only 2 sets I've got, Xiao Zhe explained, turning his back. He channeled his powerful Dou Qi into the 2 newly formed meridians. Peeking through her fingers, the little doctor fairy saw a pair of palm-sized, purplish-black wings sprout on Xiao Zhe's back. They pulsed with purple light, and as Dou Qi surged through them, the wings solidified, growing from palm size to several feet long. Wow, that the little Dr. Fairy gasped in admiration. With a thought, Xiao Zhe made the wings flap slowly, a powerful updraft lifted him a few feet off the ground before he gently floated back down. This cave's too small. Let's try it outside. Xiao Zhe grabbed the little Dr. Fairy's hand and led her out. They had already looted everything of value, so there was no reason to stay. Once outside, Xiao Zhe unfurled his purple cloud wings again. As the little Dr. Fairy cried out, Xiao Zhe leaped off the cliff. Xiao Zhe, she frantically peered over the edge and felt a sudden gust of wind, shielding her eyes. She saw Xiao Zhe flapping his wings, slowly rising into the air. I'm not ready to die just yet, Xiao Zhe called out with a grin. You're insane. This is your first time using this technique, and you just jump off a cliff to test it. It's my first time flying, but I got pretty familiar with ziyunyi back in the cave. Xiao Zhe felt a large amount of Dou Qi being consumed and sighed inwardly. Flying was definitely not for low-level fighters. An ordinary fighter would have run out of juice long ago. Luckily, his Dou Qi cyclone was unique and his Dou Qi was highly refined. That was the only reason he could sustain Ziyunyi's appetite. Xiao Zhe circled the valley a few times before returning to the stone platform to recover his strength. Okay, I've got the hang of it. Once I recharge, I'll take you for a spin, Xiao Zhe said confidently. Okay, if the little Dr. Fairy was at all worried before, she now had complete faith in Xiao Zhe. She eagerly awaited the chance to fly with him. She had just seen Xiao Zhe perform various difficult movements in the valley and he didn't seem to be mastering flying fighting skills for the first time at all. Soon after, her sweet voice echoed through the valley. The little Dr. Fairy had not yet tamed a flying monster. This was her first time in the sky. The novelty made her squeal with a mixture of fear and excitement. Even with Xiao Zhe's arms around her waist, she clung to him tightly, terrified of falling. When Xiao Zhe returned to the stone platform, she still looked exhilarated. Is this what it feels like to fly? It's incredible. No wonder everyone wants to become strong. If they do, they can fly freely through the sky, the little Dr. Fairy sighed. If you want, I can take you flying more often. Really? But won't it drain your Dou Qi? It's okay, I think I can manage. For the next few days, Xiao Zhe flew around the valley with the little Dr. Fairy. He didn't dare venture beyond the Warcraft Mountains, where low-level Warcraft were common. There was no guarantee that high-level monsters wouldn't appear either. Flying in the air would make them an easy target. Time flew by, and it was soon time to return to Wutan City. Any later, and they would miss the enrollment deadline. During this time, Xiao Xun'er had brought Xiao Zhe many benefits. She had actually broken through 3 stars. Xiao Zhe was amazed by her outrageous speed of cultivation. He had not yet received the reward. He wanted to wait until he was ready to break through to become a great fighter before receiving it. He wanted to see if receiving this non-advanced reward would have any special effects when he broke through. 5 days later, Xiao Zhe and the little Dr. Fairy returned to Wutan City. Covered in dust, the little Dr. Fairy stared in awe at the bustling mercenaries and merchants. So this is a big city. It's so much livelier than Qingshan town. By the way, Xiao Zhe, are you going to take off that mask now? I've known you for so long, and I still don't know what you really look like. The little Dr. Fairy's eyes sparkled with curiosity. I would, but these masks cost 10,000 gold coins each, and they'll be ruined when I take them off, Xiao Zhe said wistfully. Let's go take a bath. Xiao Zhe led the little Dr. Fairy to a stream. The little Dr. Fairy stood by the bank as Xiao Zhe jumped into the water and began to wash himself. Having spent more than 10 days together, their relationship had grown closer, and they were no longer so reserved. At least, the little Dr. Fairy didn't react at all when she saw Xiao Zhe naked and cleaning his body. She looked at him openly and even began to tease him. Xiao Zhe, have you gotten stronger? You seem a little different from a few weeks ago. I guess so. I've been using Dou Qi a lot, so it's like exercise. Xiao Zhe replied casually, and when he emerged from the water, his face had changed. The little Dr. Fairy's eyes widened. What a handsome young man! She thought. Chapter 33 Instant Sisters. You are listening at novelfold.audio. When Xiao Zhe came out of the water, the little medical fairy was still in shock. What? Did I not wash my face good enough? Xiao Zhe touched his cheek, which was as clean as could be. No, it's just. I didn't realize what you looked like under that disguise. You're seriously handsome. The little medical fairy blurted out. Ha! Lay it on me, I love hearing that, Xiao Zhe chuckled, pulling on a fresh set of clothes. The little medical fairy rolled her eyes, suddenly curious. So, with those looks, you must have girls falling all over you, right? Nah, not really. I usually keep a low profile. There's just one childhood friend back home. The little medical fairy felt a little thrill when she heard Xiao Zhe only had one childhood friend. She also completely understood his definition of low profile. Xiao Zhe was beyond low-key. On the way back to Wutan City, they'd passed through a town, and Xiao Zhe had insisted on throwing on a cloak just to go inside. And based on what he'd said, on the road to Qingshan town, he wouldn't even set foot inside, sticking to the outskirts. That was next-level avoidance. Come on, let's get you back to the Xiao house, Xiao Zhe said, straightening his clothes and using his fighting spirit to dry his hair. He led the little medical fairy back. The two Xiao family guards at the gate were initially stunned when they saw Xiao Zhe, but they quickly snapped to attention and greeted him in unison, Master Xiao Zhe. Hey, thanks for holding down the fort, Xiao Zhe said with a smile, pulling the little medical fairy into the compound. As soon as he was gone, the two guards started whispering. Has Master Xiao Zhe been out recently? Nope, don't remember it. So, who's the girl? Master Xiao Zhe leaves for a bit and comes back with a girl in tow. You're asking me? This ain't our business, man. After a bit of gossip, they went back to standing guard. Xiao Zhe took the little medical fairy's hand, planning to say hello to Xiao Zhan first. Meanwhile, Xiao Xun'er took a deep breath and looked at Ling Ying, who had appeared before her. Brother Xiao Zhe has been through so much lately. And he's awakened the evil poison body too. Xiao Xun'er frowned, a little uneasy, especially regarding anyone else with that kind of physique. Even though Ling Ying had explained that Xiao Zhe needed the little medical fairy's disaster poison body for his own cultivation, Xiao Xun'er still felt a little twinge. Xiao Zhe and the little medical fairy both having the poison body of disaster, it felt like they were made for each other. The good mood that had fueled her recent breakthroughs vanished completely. So, what's Brother Xiao Zhe's power level now? Well. Ling Ying coughed, knowing about his young mistress's competitive spirit. Seeing Ling Ying's hesitation, Xiao Xun'er felt a stab of foreboding. He's not still just a great fighter, is he? Not exactly, Ling Ying quickly said. Before Xiao Xun'er could even breathe a sigh of relief, Ling Ying's next words made her eyes widen. Young Master Xiao Zhe is already a 9-star fighter, and he seems to be holding back, not breaking through. Ling. Maybe you should have just kept quiet. How could Brother Xiao Zhe not be able to break through to Great Dou Master? He must be planning on coming back to the Xiao family to do it. Xiao Xun'er remembered the last time Xiao Zhe had broken through to Dou Master right in front of her. I'm just telling it like it is. To be fair, the Ernan poison body does improve quickly in the early stages. After Master Xiao Zhe awakened his physique, he leveled up 6 stars. But later on, I doubt he'll be able to keep up with you, young lady. You carry the divine bloodline of the ancient clan. Xiao Xun'er was silent, then suddenly asked, will the Ernan poison body eventually lose control of its poisonous power and suffer from the pain of being devoured by thousands of poisons? Don't worry, miss. Disaster poison bodies are rare, but the ancient tribe has solutions. Xiao Xun'er breathed a sigh of relief. I hope Brother Xiao Zhe doesn't get carried away with the power and start swallowing poison like crazy. Xiao Xun'er murmured, even though the ancient tribe had ways to deal with the poison body of disaster, that it wasn't something easily obtained. The conditions might require her to return to the ancient world. At least until she came of age, she still wanted to stay with Brother Xiao Zhe. Miss, Master Xiao Zhe is here. And he brought that girl with him. Ling Ying's figure vanished into the shadows without a trace. after reporting to Xiao Zhan that he was okay, Xiao Zhe headed to the back mountain with the little medical fairy. Xun'er. Long time no see, I've missed you. Xiao Zhe rushed over to Xun'er, who looked delighted to see him. The little medical fairy standing behind Xiao Zhe was stunned when she saw Xiao Xun'er. This was the childhood friend Xiao Zhe was talking about. Even though she wasn't fully grown yet, she was already drop-dead gorgeous. And she had this mysterious, noble air about her. Any guy would be drawn to that. Just this one childhood friend was worth a dozen other girls. The little medical fairy had been happy that Xiao Zhe only had one childhood friend, thinking she had a shot. Now, she wasn't so sure. Xiao Zhe and Xiao Xun'er caught up for a while, then Xiao Zhe introduced Xiao Xun'er to the little medical fairy. This is a friend I met on my travels, the little medical fairy. She's super kind and a doctor who saves lives. And this is Xiao Xun'er, my childhood friend. She's naturally beautiful and a genius at spiritual practice. After Xiao Zhe's quick introductions, the atmosphere seemed to improve, at least on the surface. Xiao Xun'er knew all about the little medical fairy. After all, a high-level Dou Huang was keeping tabs on things. Although she wasn't thrilled with Xiao Zhe's choices, she understood why he did it. This was a great chance to level up his strength. Anyone with ambition would jump at it, so, she had to try and make peace with it. The first thing the little medical fairy noticed about Xiao Xun'er was her tiny waist. It looked like you could span it with your hands, and along with her delicate face, she just radiated femininity, but the pretty girl in front of her had the calamity poison body, the thing everyone in Dochi continent feared the most. The little medical fairy didn't know much about Xiao Xun'er, other than her gorgeous looks. She was drawn to her noble and mysterious vibe. Even though both of them had hidden agendas, they acted all so glad to meet you for Xiao Zhe's benefit. I'm so glad you guys are getting along so well, Xiao Zhe said with a smile, unable to read minds. It was enough that they seemed to be getting along. Hey little medical fairy, you look a little worn out. How about I take you to freshen up? Sure, that would be great, Sister Xun'er. The two of them ignored Xiao Zhe and headed toward the hot spring. Xiao Zhe shrugged and followed them silently. The two of them were suddenly acting like sisters. Xiao Zhe just shook his head. The relationships between women were a mystery. Please keep reading. I recommend reading the whole thing to the end. Please use your little hands and swipe all the way to the last page of the book. Thank you. Thanks to happylife_dd, brother, bastard Tragear and L_dash, for their monthly support. Many thanks. Chapter 34 Promoted to the Great Fighter. Additional update for Mid-Autumn Festival. I wish all boo. You are listening at novelfull.audio. On the back hill of the Xiao family estate, Xiao Zhe sat cross-legged on the stone platform, ready to claim Xiao Xun'er's reward he'd earned recently. Boom! The Dochi cyclone he'd been holding back for ages went wild, drawing in massive amounts of energy from the surrounding world. Nearby, the little fairy doctor, decked out in a fresh outfit, stood next to Xiao Xun'er. They held hands like the closest of sisters, each with their own unique charm. Was there this much commotion when you broke through, Xiao Zhe? The little fairy doctor wondered, eyeing the swirling vortex of energy around him. If Xiao Zhe hadn't mentioned he was just aiming for Great Dou Master, she'd have pegged him for leveling up way higher. Brother Xiao Zhe is one of the Jia Ma Empire's top talents. This is normal, Xiao Xun'er explained matter-of-factly, seemingly forgetting her own surprise the last time she witnessed his breakthrough. Hearing this, the little fairy doctor couldn't help but stare at Xiao Zhe. Guess that's what happens with a genius, she thought. Xiao Xun'er had given Xiao Zhan a heads-up about the breakthrough, so everyone in the Xiao family wouldn't freak out. Xiao Zhan, upon hearing the news, was floored. He stood at the edge of the back mountain, hands clasped behind his back, gazing up at the vortex of energy and marveling. Zhe's talent, it's unheard of, that he wasn't even 12 yet, and already on the verge of becoming a great fighter. Comparing himself, Xiao Zhan suddenly felt his own 5-star fighting master status was nothing special. Am I getting old? Maybe once Zhe reaches Douling, I'll pass the clan leader title to him. With a powerhouse like that at the helm, no one in the family could object. Xiao Zhan was already picturing retirement, letting Xiao Zhe carry the weight. Meanwhile, Xiao Zhe, focused on his breakthrough, had no clue about Xiao Zhan's plans to offload responsibility. He just felt that the tenfold feedback reward for basic improvements from Xiao Xun'er was different from previous breakthroughs. Looks like only Xiao Xun'er's advanced rewards are this special, that even so, the solid base laid by his previous Douji cyclone and Douqi liquid made the breakthrough smooth sailing. Vast amounts of energy poured through his pores, surging through his body. Unlike Xiao Yan, who always relied on elixirs, Xiao Zhe was mainly drawing on the energy of the world. Thanks to the system's feedback, this demanded stronger meridians. Xiao Zhe needed to sort through the wild, mottled energy now coursing through him. Unlike the milder power of elixirs, remembering his last breakthrough, Xiao Zhe knew he needed a massive energy influx, so he didn't restrict the pull of his Douji cyclone. Using his breathing as a guide, he sorted and channeled the energy, directing it along the path of his exercise, ultimately merging it into the cyclone. The strange cyclone spun at a dizzying speed, compressing the raw energy, expelling the impurities, and condensing only the purest essence into mist. Under the immense pressure of the cyclone, the mist solidified into an even higher quality fighting spirit. *crunch star. A crushing sound echoed in Xiao Zhe's ears. The liquid Douqi, which had filled the cyclone, was now being compressed dramatically. As its volume shrank, Xiao Zhe felt its energy increasing exponentially. Crack! The sound of flowing liquid changed to the sound of solid objects colliding. Xiao Zhe checked the Douji cyclone and found it empty, save for a spinning dark blue crystal. The pearl-sized crystal radiated a majestic energy, as vast as the sea. Dou Jing, star. Many Douqi continent experts believe that condensing the Dou Jing was the only true path to Douqi mastery. This tiny crystal was a cultivator's crystallized energy. It might seem small, but its energy was staggering. Xiao Zhe continued absorbing energy, but he couldn't help but wonder. Normally, when a great Dou master breaks through, they condense diamond-shaped crystals. Why is mine a round bead? Unable to figure it out, he chalked it up to the system. As long as the Dou Jing is real. Xiao Zhe slowly opened his eyes, colorful lights flickering. This was the mark of his perfect evil body. Unlike the usual evil poison body, which has a colorful, poisonous line in the lower abdomen that endangers the heart, Xiao Zhe's perfect version lacked this flaw. He could perfectly control the poison within. No matter how potent the poison became, the evil poison body could suppress it. This was a stark contrast to the path the little fairy doctor took in the original story. She devoured poison, accumulated power, condensed the poison elixir, and constructed runes until she gained perfect control, reaching the level of 7-star Dou Zun. Xiao Zhe, with his perfect disaster poison body, faced no such risk of losing control. He could swallow as much poison as he pleased. Any poison entering his body would be instantly suppressed. The more powerful the poisonous body, the richer the colors in his pupils became. This was the defining trait of Xiao Zhe's disaster poison body. Phew, breakthrough successful. Xiao Zhe stood up, smiling at the two women. Brother Xiao Zhe, the Canaan College enrollment is tomorrow. I heard cousin Xiao Yu's tutor is coming to Wutan City to recruit students, and she's supposed to be a beautiful woman, Xiao Xun'er said with a knowing smile. The minimum requirement for a Canaan College tutor is a great fighting master. If brother Xiao Zhe goes to the enrollment ceremony, that beautiful instructor will be speechless with surprise. The little fairy doctor said, amazed. Ah. Does that mean Xiao Zhe could be a tutor at the college? No way. Being a tutor is always a hassle. Although you don't have to babysit them, if something happens to the students, you're still responsible. Just thinking about it gives me a headache. Xiao Zhe quickly waved his hand in refusal. The two women chuckled, fully aware of his aversion to trouble and desire to stay low-key. They had thoroughly discussed this during their time in the hot springs. Ignoring their teasing, Xiao Zhe stretched and addressed them. I'm going to visit Miss Yafei. She helped me out a lot, so I can't ignore her after getting back. Want to come? Xiao Zhe asked for their opinions, but Xun'er and the little fairy doctor unanimously declined. Chapter 35 The Rich Woman is Hungry. Qi Gathering Beads. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Yafei dragged herself back to her room at the miter auction house, exhausted, but the thought of seeing him again put a little pep in her step. Opening the door, his young face flashed before her eyes, now edged with a hint of maturity. Had his little adventure over the past month really changed him that much? Sister Yafei, I came to see you the minute I got back, Xiao Zhe said, standing up with a smile. Yafei rolled her eyes playfully. Sister. I'm just an auctioneer. And when you got back, didn't you go straight home with that little girl? Then it was off to catch up with your childhood sweetheart. I figured it would be a while before you even thought of your old sister, huh? Wow, did Sister Yafei plant a spy outside the Xiao house? She knows everything. Xiao Zhe looked a little sheepish. His words were just a polite greeting, like saying, "It's good to see you." But is Sister Yafei really that excited about my return? Enough to send spies to watch the Xiao family? A flicker of unease crossed Yafei's face as she tossed her mink stole onto a chair and sat down. Ugh. I'm beat after a long day. Wish someone would give me a massage. Xiao Zhe chuckled to himself. She was changing the subject fast. Seeing Yafei was avoiding the topic, he didn't push it. All that hard work deserves a reward, Sister Yafei. Let me give you a massage. Yafei relaxed, closing her eyes slightly, clearly signaling that she was all his. Xiao Zhe didn't hesitate. He moved behind her and looked down. Even though he couldn't even see his knees, her beauty was breathtaking. The women he was close to were all around his age or a bit older, none of them held a candle to Yafei. He took a deep breath and placed his hands on her shoulders, carefully controlling his pressure. He massaged her until she started making little aha sounds of contentment. After a set of presses, Xiao Zhe sat back down. Yafei's face was flushed, her eyes half closed in bliss, and she spoke lazily. I didn't know you had such skills, Xiao Zhe. And if I told you it's the first time I've ever given a massage, would you believe me? Sure, sister, believes you. Yafei composed herself, sitting up straight and looking relaxed. She felt her energy flowing better. It felt like his massage actually relaxed her muscles and improved her circulation. Yafei started to think she'd misjudged this young man. He seemed to be full of surprises, constantly offering her something new. I picked up these magic cores in the Warcraft Mountains. Could you value them for me, Sister Yafei? Xiao Zhe waved his hand, and a pile of magic cores appeared on the table. He'd gone to the outskirts of the Warcraft Mountains with little fairy doctor to gather medicinal herbs. The best herbs were always guarded by monsters, so fighting was inevitable. Once, he accidentally ran into a wave of smaller monsters. Xiao Zhe killed dozens of them and scared the rest off. That one time, he'd collected nearly 20 magic cores, even though they were all just first level. At 500 gold coins apiece, that was almost 20,000 gold coins in one go. Combined with everything else, he'd made tens of thousands of gold coins on that trip. When admissions at Canaan College ended, he would be leaving Wutan City. It would bring him peace of mind to have a thicker wallet when he left. Yafei stared at the pile of magic cores, her jaw dropping. She stammered, You hunted all of these?" But when Xiao Zhe nodded, Yafei couldn't help but ask, "Brother Xiao Zhe, how strong are you now?" "I can't even tell." Sister Yafei, you can't really see through me, can you?" Xiao Zhe looked her up and down. He just touched her and knew she wasn't even at the level of a fighter yet. Seeing her annoyed expression, he quickly raised his hand in a gesture of peace. Okay. I was a fighting master when I left, and now I'm a great fighting master." Whoa! Yafei's eyes went wide in surprise, her composure slipping as she gasped, "A great fighting master before the age of 12. The entire Jia Ma Empire probably didn't have anyone like that." That's when Yafei truly realized how lucky she was to know this young man. Xiao Zhe was destined to soar, to reach the pinnacle of the Jia Ma Empire. After a moment, Yafei regained her composure and began counting the magic cores. Magic cores are always in demand and easy to sell. "Do you want the gold now, or should I give it to you after I sell them?" "Just do it now. Estimate it. Don't worry about it too much." Xiao Zhe said casually. "No way. I can't let my little brother get shortchanged." Yafei thought for a moment, then got up and went into the bedroom. She returned with a light gold card. This has 100,000 gold coins on it. Now that you're a great fighting master, training is going to take more resources. Ye Fei handed him the card with a smile, her eyes leaving no room for argument. Xiao Zhe was silent for a moment, then took it gratefully. Sister Ye Fei, I appreciate you looking out for me. I'll definitely return the favor someday. That the pile of magic cores was worth only 50,000 gold coins, but Ye Fei was giving him a card worth 100,000. What's this? Are you going on another long trip? Ye Fei sensed the underlying meaning in his words. Yeah, I'm planning to apply to Canaan College to see more of the world. I see, Ye Fei said thoughtfully, a hint of disappointment in her eyes. By the way, Sister Ye Fei, I want to buy something from you for my family. Sure, wait a sec and I'll get you the product list. Ye Fei pulled the list from the table and handed it to Xiao Zhe. Silence fell between them. Xiao Zhe looked down at the list, while Ye Fei watched him quietly. Xiao Zhe was planning to leave and prepare gifts for everyone he knew. He'd already picked out gifts for everyone else, but he was hesitant about his third brother's gift. Suddenly, he spotted something called a chi gathering bead in the column of unsaleable items. Sister Ye Fei, this chi gathering bead. Oh, that thing. Some mercenaries supposedly found it while exploring ruins in the Warcraft Mountains. Ye Fei looked thoughtful, remembering the bead's origin. The guy wanted to auction it off to see if anyone could identify it, but it failed 3 times in a row, so he sold it to the auction house cheap. Xiao Zhe kept listening. For it to have failed 3 times, it had to be disappointing. The introduction said it could automatically absorb fighting chi. That was confusing. The fact that it's a slow-moving item naturally has its peculiarities. Although this oddity can automatically absorb fighting chi, it's difficult for others to extract the chi inside. The great fighting masters at the auction house tried, but they could only get a tiny amount out. So it seemed pretty useless. Xiao Zhe's eyes lit up. Wouldn't this be perfect for Xiao Yan's current situation? Chapter 36. I'll take you through the back door. You are listening at novelfold.audio. In Ye Fei's room, Xiao Zhe toyed with a thumb-sized jade bead, a chi-gathering bead. This strange little doohickey has decent storage capacity. Basically, it automatically sucks up and stores any dou chi that's floating around. Besides the usual weapons you find around here, these kinds of gadgets keep popping up, probably something a blacksmith whipped up by accident. Xiao Zhe tried to draw out the energy himself, but it was like pulling teeth, but no sweat. Yao Lao's spirit can siphon energy from Xiao Yan without him even noticing, so, draining this bead should be a cinch. Once it's empty, it'll just refill itself. That should speed up Yao Lao's awakening, no problem, and get Xiao Yan back on track as a genius. Besides wanting to see Xiao Yan get his mojo back, Xiao Zhe had another reason for doing this. He wanted to snag Xiao Yan's alchemy skills. Don't get him wrong, binding Yao Lao's skills would be great, but Xiao Zhe was greedy. Xiao Yan's going to be even better at alchemy than his master ever was. His potential is way higher. That's why Xiao Zhe decided to bind Xiao Yan's alchemy. Of course, the future Emperor Yan will be more than just a master alchemist, but the system only lets you bind one ability per person, and in the end, Xiao Zhe picked alchemy because it was the most useful. Alright. This chi-gathering bead is just what I needed. Thanks a bunch, Ye Fei. That he tucked it away, along with the other stuff he'd picked up. Well, I should get going. Gotta prep for the enrollment thing tomorrow. Good luck, Xiao Zhe. Ye Fei stood up and saw him to the door. Back in her room, a shadow of sadness crossed her face. So, this is a family gift. Guess being like a sister only goes so far. Sigh. Ye Fei sighed, heading back to her chair. Then she noticed a beautiful gift box sitting on the chair across the room. A few words were written on it in elegant calligraphy. For Ye Fei. He does have a heart after all. It's worth all the trouble I went through for him. And nice penmanship, too. Ye Fei happily grabbed the box, taking a moment to admire it. Then, she scurried back to her room to see what Xiao Zhe had gotten her. Meanwhile, Xiao Zhe arrived back at the Xiao residence. He didn't have many gifts to give out this time around. Xiao Zhan, Xiao Yan, Xiao Xun'er, little medical fairy, and maybe Xiao Yu. That's it. even though this was more of a goodbye gift situation. Xiao Zhan and Xiao Yan were really the only ones he was leaving behind, but singling them out seemed kinda lame. Better to just spread the love. It wasn't like the stuff was expensive anyway. That evening, Xiao Zhe, Xiao Zhan, and Xiao Yan had dinner together as a family for the first time in ages. Afterward, Xiao Zhe handed Xiao Zhan his gift, too. With his current strength, Xiao Zhe was pretty much a shoo-in for Canaan Academy. He was definitely leaving the Xiao family soon. Xiao Zhan took the gift with a smile and excused himself, leaving the two brothers to talk alone. "Hey, everything been alright with you lately?" Xiao Yan asked, trying to sound casual. "Yeah, just the usual training slump." "Those jerks haven't been giving you any trouble, have they?" "Nah, not anymore. They clam up whenever they see me. Actually, I've been getting along better with Xiao Ning lately," Xiao Yan said quickly, hoping Xiao Zhe wouldn't go off and pummel someone again. "Ha! That's good. Guess you and Xiao Ning just needed to duke it out to become friends." Xiao Zhe grinned, then, he pulled out a wristband with the chi-gathering bead embedded in it. "Here, I picked this up for you. Might help with your situation." Xiao Yan was puzzled. How could a wristband help? Just put it on. It's got a little something extra inside. Try to wear it all the time unless you really have to take it off, Xiao Zhe said seriously. Seeing the look on Xiao Zhe's face, Xiao Yan nodded solemnly. He trusted Xiao Zhe. "Well, I should get going and prepare for tomorrow's enrollment thing." Xiao Zhe stood up to leave, but just as he was about to go, Xiao Yan stopped him. "Hey, fourth brother, what level are you at now? Just broke through to Great Fighter today." Xiao Zhe dropped that bombshell and walked away, leaving Xiao Yan frozen in shock. Xiao Yan whispered, his throat dry. "Great Fighter. That's insane." At the same time, Xiao Yan was more determined than ever to catch up to Xiao Zhe. Early the next morning, Xiao Yu pounded on Xiao Zhe's door. "Xiao Zhe, get your butt out of bed. Let's go, before it gets too crowded." Click asterisk, the door swung open, revealing a pretty little face, and Xiao Yu's hand froze in midair. "Who are you?" Xiao Zhe's been hiding a cutie in his room. "Hey, take it easy, sis. This is a friend of mine, little medical fairy." Xiao Zhe's voice came from behind her. He walked forward as she wore a white coat. "She's staying at the Xiao residence for one night and she's here to apply for Canaan Academy, too." Xiao Yu, jaw hanging open, pointed at them. "You two, are staying together?" Just then, Xiao Xun'er's calm voice spoke. "You're jumping to conclusions. I was with Xiao Zhe last night, he just went back to his room to clean up this morning." Xiao Xun'er added with a smile, little medical fairy didn't have a place to stay, and it would have been a hassle to make up a guest room so quick, so Xiao Zhe let her stay in his room, and he bunked with Xun'er, helping her warm up her meridians all night long. Alright, you were the one rushing me, and now you're gossiping," Xiao Zhe said to Xiao Yu, who still seemed determined to pry into the situation. Finally, Xiao Yu gave up. The group of four headed to the square where Canaan Academy was holding its enrollment event. Xiao Ning and Xiao Mei hadn't tagged along. Canaan Academy's admission requirement was reaching the 8th level of Dou Qi before the age of 18. They obviously hadn't made the cut, so they weren't interested in joining the circus. As they approached the square, the crowd got thicker and thicker. Each person was having bad thoughts in their minds, especially Xiao Yu, who said, "Those people are nuts. Some of them have been camped out in the square all night, waiting for the Canaan Academy recruiters." Xiao Yu, who had successfully enrolled last year, remembered it well and explained. "Even though they're recruiting in Wutan City, they're also hitting up several other big cities around here. It's normal for there to be tons of people. So, what do we do?" Little medical fairy asked, looking at the sea of people. "Don't worry, I'll get us in through the back door," Xiao Yu said confidently. Led by Xiao Yu, the group made their way to the back of the square. It was guarded by soldiers from the city lord's palace, fully armed and ready. They were packed in tight, like sardines, on the inside and out. Xiao Yu told Xiao Zhe and the others to wait while she showed her badge to the garrison commander. The stern-looking general glanced at Xiao Zhe and his friends and frowned slightly. Chapter 37 Test. The conflict between freshmen and seniors. You are listening at novelfold.audio. He's handsome, but way too young. Xuemei Xiao, it's not that I don't trust you, it's just these three look like kids. The garrison general paused, then spoke frankly. Don't sweat it, General. I wouldn't bring them if they weren't up to snuff. The strongest of the bunch might even give you a run for your money. The general raised an eyebrow at Xiao Yu. Since she was so confident, he'd let it play out. If they failed the assessment, they'd be the ones embarrassed. The general didn't take Xiao Yu's last comment seriously, too young. No matter how talented, there was no way they could beat him, that was a joke. Xiao Yu returned with the general, who gave the three another once-over. They held his gaze without flinching, which impressed him. Most people couldn't meet his eyes head-on, he'd seen battle, and his gaze carried a deathly weight. Let them pass. The general waved his hand and stepped aside. The steel wall of soldiers parted, creating a path wide enough for two. Xiao Yu flashed the jade token at Xiao Zhe and the others, then waved them forward. Stepping onto the path, Xiao Yu's confident smile faltered, and a chill went down her spine. This army had seen some serious action. These soldiers weren't just for show. They carried the faint scent of blood, and walking among them created a powerful sense of unease. Xiao Zhe wasn't bothered. He even glanced at the general standing off to the side. He sensed the oppressive feeling was coming from him. He'd fought his way through hordes of monsters, even the really nasty ones. Facing this was easy. Besides, Xiao Zhe's biggest confidence was his own strength. A one-star warrior could wipe out the whole army if he wanted. When you aren't strong enough, the oppression you feel is just for show, a paper tiger to the strong. Xiao Xun'er beside him remained calm, being constantly guarded by high-level fighters. Xiao Xun'er wasn't fazed by this group of soldiers. The little fairy doctor was initially startled, but quickly regained her composure. She'd been with Xiao Zhe during the monster wave. The aftermath was a bloodbath. The small valleys became pools of blood. She'd thrown up for hours after, but her tolerance for the smell of blood and feelings of oppression had definitely improved. So, after her initial discomfort, she quickly settled down. Xiao Yu barely made it down the 10-meter path. Reaching the end, she let out a shaky breath, her face pale. Looking back, she saw Xiao Zhe and the others staring at her calmly, and her cheeks flushed. She thought, of course, only monsters can hang with monsters. The general hurried over, his eyes wide. He looked at Xiao Zhe and his friends with a newfound respect. He'd been wrong. The oppressive feeling was intentional, a test. Most people would have crumbled under the pressure. Big brother, you're being too hard on us. Xiao Yu patted her chest, a little shaken. Ahem, it was Tutor Ruolin's call. If we let everyone slide in the back door, what's the point of admissions? Xiao Yu nodded, annoyed. She rolled her eyes, then led Xiao Zhe and the others toward the square. Before moving, Xiao Zhe glanced back at the general. Did a normal trial really require an officer to crank up the pressure? He dismissed the thought and moved on. Whether the general was there or not, it made no difference to him. They reached the tent in the center of the square, and a woman with a killer figure rushed out. She bear-hugged Xiao Yu, hands all over her. Get off me, you pervert! Xiao Yu shoved her away, laughing. Otherwise, this girl's hands would never quit. Everyone, this is my best friend from Canaan Academy, Snowy. She's got a body that doesn't quit and more admirers than she can count. Xiao Zhe nodded. He could see that. Snowy wore a red dress and had a young, pretty face, maybe not quite as pretty as Xiao Yu, but she had an hourglass figure. Guys passing by couldn't help but sneak glances, and some even swallowed hard. Xiao Yu slapped away Snowy's wandering hand, then pulled her over to Xiao Zhe and the others. These two are cousins, Xiao Xun'er and Xiao Zhe. And this is Xiao Zhe's friend, the little fairy doctor. Snowy stared at the three with curiosity, her eyes quickly locking on to Xiao Zhe. Girls! Get out here! Snowy shouted into the tent. A group of women emerged. Before they could ask anything, Snowy pointed at Xiao Zhe. Wow! What a hottie! Whose kid is this? Why is he here? So handsome. Snowy, come on. Gotta share the goodies. Seeing the gaggle of girls, Xiao Yu knew there would be trouble and stepped in front of Xiao Zhe. Ahem, this is my cousin, Xiao Zhe. Don't get any ideas. He's not even an adult yet. Oh, Xiao Yu, you never mentioned you had family. Turns out you were hiding a good-looking young man. Xiao Zhe smiled, being polite and amiable. Xiao Xun'er grabbed Xiao Zhe's hand, staking her claim. The little fairy doctor stood next to Xiao Zhe, her eyes wide. It looked like a commotion was about to start. Suddenly, an angry voice roared from inside the tent. Why are you making me stand out here? You're just a 3-star fighter. You may be a senior, but I'm still a student at Canaan Academy. The sudden outburst silenced the girls outside the tent. Xiao Zhe's eyebrows rose. That told him a lot. There was conflict between the freshmen and the upperclassmen. The girls gave up their flirting and hurried back into the tent. Xiao Yu waved Xiao Zhe and the others to follow her inside. Inside, students from Canaan Academy were lounging in the shade. Outside the shade, a dozen or so young men and women were forced to stand in the scorching sun. The academy students looked toward the center of the tent with anticipation. The freshmen looked towards the center with surprise. They didn't dare resist, but the kid in the center did, speaking the thoughts that were on their mind. He looked about 15 or 16, and had a burly build. He stood with his arms crossed, glaring at the person in front of him. Chapter 38 Help. Tutor Ruolin. You are listening at novelfold.audio. The atmosphere inside the tent had grown tense, with the Canaan students watching intently. New recruits outside the tent were eagerly anticipating what would happen next. Facing the freshmen stood a young man with a pale complexion. The 3 gold stars on his Canaan Academy uniform showcased his strength. However, his fair face was now twisted in an ugly, gloomy expression. Rhodes, feeling the eyes of the surrounding students, suddenly felt humiliated. He was used to crushing the confidence of cocky freshmen, these little hometown geniuses. It made him feel good. But now, he'd run into a real troublemaker who'd openly challenged him in front of everyone. For Rhodes, who always cared about his reputation, this was deeply embarrassing. I've seen your type before. But it always ends the same way. No matter how loud you yell at first, you'll be miserable later. It's an unwritten rule at Canaan College. We need to knock the arrogance out of you small-town geniuses. Otherwise, you'll get to the academy and start fights over every little thing, that the burly young man said with a disdainful sneer. You think you can knock the arrogance out of me just because you're a 3-star fighter? Rhodes had hoped his words would salvage his pride, but this guy wasn't listening. And what he said was infuriating. Especially those 2 unexplained laughs at the end. It completely ignited his anger. In that case, let me, a 3-star fighter, teach you the rules of the academy. Come on then. I want to see if the seniors here are really as good as they claim. Or is Canaan College just coasting on its reputation? That the young man's defiance made him accept the challenge without hesitation. The onlookers cleared a space, enjoying the spectacle even more. The exposed freshmen outside the tent were hopeful, eager for the burly guy to give them a win. Xiao Zhe raised his eyebrows, observing the 2 facing off. He could see that they were in the same league, both 3-star fighters. Looking at the burly young man's physique, it was clear he worked out hard. Among lower-level fighters, that kind of build was a definite advantage. Sure enough, after a Canaan student acting as referee announced start, the burly young man charged forward and threw a powerful punch. Caught off guard, Rhodes was knocked back 3 steps, his face darkening instantly. His earlier confidence was now overshadowed by worry. He realized that this guy was every bit as strong as he was. Xiao Zhe watched, thinking, this kid's got some bite to him. That he was actually pleased. While it was fine to humble some of the arrogant geniuses to prevent fights, this wasn't the right way to do it. Once they got to Canaan College, they'd see they were surrounded by people just as talented, or even more so. That would humble them naturally. If they still had an arrogant attitude after that, then Xiao Zhe would consider them stupid. Making them stand outside and get sunburned for half an hour was inappropriate. While Xiao Zhe was lost in thought, Rhodes had already been forced to the ground by the burly boy's relentless attacks. Rhodes' face burned with shame, like he'd been slapped a dozen times. the shocked expressions of the onlookers only made it worse. The freshmen were thrilled, finally getting some payback. The burly young man, seeing Rhodes on the ground, looked slightly disappointed but didn't press his advantage. Then, Xiao Zhe noticed Rhodes sneak something into his mouth. Xiao Zhe narrowed his eyes. Was he cheating because he couldn't win fairly? Sure enough, Rhodes turned over, his aura shifting, and he charged at the burly young man with red eyes. Sensing something was wrong, the burly young man tried to react, but Rhodes was already upon him, fists glowing with fighting spirit, clearly using some kind of advanced technique. Bang! Ugh! Caught off guard, the burly young man flew backward. He stumbled back a few steps, then half-knelt, spitting out blood. Rhodes planted his feet, leaving shallow imprints in the ground. He charged toward the burly young man, a hint of murderous intent in his eyes. The girls screamed in surprise, other Canaan college students frowned, ready to intervene before someone got killed. The freshmen standing outside in the sun looked worried. The burly young man looked up at Rhodes' fist, now crackling with energy, and his heart raced. Injured, he couldn't move, forced to watch the fist approaching. At the last moment, he saw a hand wrapped in light blue energy reach out from the side and grab Rhodes' wrist. Let's not get carried away. This is a dirty, lethal move. Why bother? Xiao Zhe's calm voice came from the side, startling both Rhodes and the burly young man. Everyone turned to Xiao Zhe in surprise. No one had noticed him approaching. You! Are you trying to defend him? Rhodes' eyes were bloodshot. He was clearly out of his mind. Seriously? What kind of drugs did you take? Your strength didn't improve that much, but they've clearly fried your brain. As Xiao Zhe spoke, he suddenly exerted force. With a crack, Rhodes' arm broke. Ack! Rhodes doubled over in pain. Xiao Zhe kicked Rhodes in the chest, sending him flying to crash outside the tent. Whoa! Who is this kid? So brutal. He actually knocked Rhodes away after he'd taken that potion. This kid must be incredibly strong. The tent went completely silent, everyone staring at Xiao Zhe. The Canaan students looked grim. The girls who knew Xiao Zhe's identity were shocked. Some of the freshman girls looked at him with admiration. Into this silence, a gentle voice broke through. Oh. I only stepped away for a minute, and you've already caused a commotion. With the voice, a figure in green appeared. Her face wore a gentle smile, like a spring breeze washing over the heart. She radiated a unique feminine grace. It was Ruolin, the instructor for this recruitment. Worried about Xiao Zhe, Xiao Yu rushed forward with a smile and wrapped her arms around Ruolin's waist. Oh, Tutor Ruolin, I missed you so much. It was my cousin, Xiao Zhe, who stepped in. He was a little reckless. Please don't blame him. Oh. He's your cousin. Is he here to participate in the recruitment as well? Yep. Ruolin's eyes sparkled with surprise and delight. She might have found a real gem this time. Xiao Zhe was helping the burly young man up. The young man nodded gratefully. Thanks for the save. I'm Lei Luo. Xiao Zhe. Please keep reading. Now I recommend you read it all. Thank you for your support. Thanks to L_ and One Night Forever for your monthly ticket support. Many thanks. Chapter 39 Punishment and Classification. You are listening at novelfull.audio. You too, help Rod inside. And everyone else, freshmen, come on in. Her voice was as soothing as water, washing over everyone, making even the summer heat seem to vanish. Instructor Ruolin directed 2 students to carry the unconscious Rod inside. After examining his injuries, she frowned slightly and gave Xiao Zhe a playful glare. You little rascal, you really go all out. The charming look caused the boys nearby to blush. Xiao Zhe, however, remained calm and simply shrugged. I was holding back. Compared to how Rod was trying to take out Lei Luo, I was being merciful. The other students were surprised. Xiao Zhe wasn't exaggerating. Rod had clearly been aiming for a fatal blow. Well, Rod let his temper get the better of him. It's not that serious, Ruolin sighed. Placing her hand on Rod's chest, she used water-based fighting energy to soothe the chaotic aura within him and heal his injuries. Both water and wood-based fighting energy have healing properties. Mercenary groups often recruit people with those attributes when possible, since it's cheaper than using healing potions. Xiao Zhe noticed the envious and jealous looks from the surrounding boys. As if being treated by Ruolin was a great privilege, the earlier glance she'd given him was so alluring that most men would have been affected, but Xiao Zhe took it in stride. He'd already experienced thousands of destructions and resurrections in an instant when he received the hundredfold reward from the disaster poison body. That kind of soul-stirring pleasure made him highly resistant to such things. Now, unless he was caught off guard, ordinary temptations and pleasures barely registered. The system's rewards weren't just about increased strength, they came with significant hidden benefits. Soon, Ruolin slowly withdrew her hands and stood up, her expression neutral. Rod's eyelids fluttered open. He saw Ruolin's face and a look of admiration and longing filled his eyes. Ruolin ignored him, looked at Xiao Zhe, and said with a smile, "Little guy, what should I do with you?" "Shouldn't I get some kind of medal for this?" Xiao Zhe asked, feigning surprise. Everyone's eyes widened. "Huh, you've got a way with words. Tell me why you think you deserve a reward." Ruolin chuckled. "I stopped a fight between students at Canaan College." Xiao Zhe ignored the surprised looks. That senior was ruthless when he had the advantage. He used the competition as an excuse to seriously injure people. If the upperclassmen at Canaan College can just attack the new students like this, no one will want to come here anymore. "Humph," Rod retorted, looking grim. "That's because this guy doesn't follow the rules. I was just teaching him a lesson." "Oh, really?" Xiao Zhe said sarcastically. "Is that why you went for a deadly strike to teach me a lesson? I stopped you and gave you a second chance." Rod turned pale. Xiao Zhe's words reminded him of that kick. His chest still ached. "Besides, your rules are garbage." Ruolin showed a hint of interest. Aside from Xiao Zhe's strength, she couldn't quite figure him out. She hadn't paid attention to the specifics, but Xiao Zhe's statement had piqued her curiosity. "Humph, it's an unwritten rule at Canaan Academy. Many instructors even tacitly approve it. Why are you so against it?" Rod argued, glancing at Ruolin. Seeing her face was impassive, he sighed in relief. He was trying to leverage the other instructors, but teacher Ruolin didn't seem to like those rules either. "Huh, it's still a garbage rule." Xiao Zhe ignored Rod's angry glare and continued. "What you call rules is just a way to break the arrogance of small-town geniuses and make them more docile. But they've already joined Canaan College. They'll quickly realize that there are people just as good as them, or even better. If they still think highly of themselves in that situation, it's not arrogance, it's just plain stupidity. And there aren't that many stupid people in the world. Most people are self-aware. Why punish the majority of self-aware people because of a few idiots? Doesn't that make it a garbage rule?" Xiao Zhe's final question silenced the entire tent. The Canaan College students had experienced this kind of thing before. They couldn't fight it, so they'd just gone along with it. Now, it seemed like a pretty bad rule, and the freshmen who had felt the sting of this rule hated it even more. They completely agreed with Xiao Zhe. Ruolin, who had been calm, suddenly smiled. "Smart little guy, you've convinced me." Rod's eyes widened and he turned to Ruolin. "I was neutral about the rule, but you've changed my mind. From now on, nothing like this will happen among my students." Ruolin glanced at the surrounding Canaan College students, her warning clear. They all stood up straight, no longer daring to laugh. They promised never to bully the freshmen again. "As for Rod, you'll stand there for as long as these freshmen had to stand outside." Each freshman stood for half an hour, and with 10 of them, that's 5 hours. "Do the math." Rod opened his mouth, wanting to beg for mercy, but instructor Ruolin, usually so gentle, showed a rare hint of anger in her eyes. He lowered his head and admitted his mistake. Rod is willing to accept the punishment. He glanced at Xiao Zhe, walked out of the tent, and began to serve his penance. The freshmen exchanged excited glances. Ruolin looked at them and said, "I'm banning this, but don't give me any trouble." The fact that this became an unwritten rule at Canaan College shows how difficult you freshmen can be to manage. Ruolin walked behind the table, sat down, and picked up parchment, a quill, and ink. She smiled. "Alright, everyone, you're all students of Canaan College now. The college needs to assess your potential, so we need to know your specific strength. Potential is rated on a scale for those under 20, starting with F level for those at the lowest rank of fighting spirit. The rating increases by 1 level for each higher level of strength. All the way up to S level, the highest rank, which is a 5-star fighter. Everyone understand? Now, we'll go through you one by one." After the earlier incident, the freshmen were much more compliant. They lined up and reported their strength to Ruolin. Xiao Xun'er was conflicted, he wanted both treatment and a low profile. Chapter 41 vs. 1 Monster. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Inside the tent, the older students from Canaan College kept things organized, directing the freshmen to line up neatly, but everyone's eyes kept drifting to the back of the line. Just how strong was Xiao Xun'er, the guy who could take down a 3-star fighter in a heartbeat? That was the question on everyone's mind. As registration began, Xiao Yu was pulled aside by her girlfriends, and she happily joined them. With Xiao Xun'er and the others stuck in line, she felt a bit out of place. "Seriously, how strong is your cousin anyway? He wasted roads in a second. Is he even in the same league as that little demon girl?" Snowy asked, unable to contain her curiosity. Her eyes, like everyone else's, were glued to Xiao Xun'er, filled with a mixture of curiosity and admiration. He was strong and good-looking, what wasn't to like? The other girls chimed in, grabbing Xiao Yu's hand and begging her to spill the beans. Xiao Yu frowned, thinking about Xiao Zhe's low-key personality. After a moment, she answered, "Let's just say the little witch doesn't even come close to my cousin." Her answer only made the girls even more eager to know. Their curiosity was far from satisfied, and they kept pestering her for details about Xiao Zhe's power. Meanwhile, at the registration table, Lin Xian, 17, level 8 fighting spirit, Ruolin said, writing the information on a scroll. "Grade F." The girl breathed a sigh of relief, bowed to Ruolin, and went to wait on the other side. Registration continued smoothly, the line inching forward. Lei Luo, mindful of their earlier run-in, hung back near Xiao Xun'er, chatting with him. He wasn't from Wutan City, he'd come from another city specifically for the enrollment ceremony. Back home, he was considered a top talent. But their earlier conflict had shown him that there's always someone better. Rhodes, who'd beaten him with cheap tricks, didn't count. No, Xiao Xun'er was the real deal. Their conversation was casual, mostly about the differences between their hometowns. Xiao Xun'er and Little Fairy Doctor were holding hands, whispering to each other. Soon enough, it was their turn, with Lei Luo right behind them. Aside from Xiao Xun'er and his group, Lei Luo was probably the most promising of the newcomers. Lei Luo stepped up to the table, stating his info proudly. Lei Luo, 17, 3-star fighter. His words caused a stir in the tent. Everyone had been speculating about Lei Luo after he defeated Rhodes. Even so, they were still impressed by a 17-year-old 3-star fighter. Ruolin smiled, surprised, and quickly wrote it down. Looks like this year's recruitment is full of surprises. So many talented young people. Grade B. She looked expectantly at the last 3. Who wants to go next? These 3 were young, but they met the requirements, though their strength was still unknown. Xiao Xun'er and the others exchanged glances. Little Fairy Doctor stepped forward, smiling. "I'll go first." Little Fairy Doctor, age, 12, 3-star fighter. She'd been wandering since she was a child and didn't really know how old she was. Remembering Xiao Xun'er was supposedly 12, she gave the same age. Whoa! Seriously? A 12-year-old 3-star fighter? Man, even the Academy's Little Witch can't compare. The tent buzzed with excitement and disbelief. Ruolin stared at Little Fairy Doctor in shock. Hearing the surprised whispers, Little Fairy Doctor released a bit of her fighting spirit. That should settle it. Even based on pure feeling, her fighting spirit seemed stronger than Lei Luo's. Ruolin, a master herself, could tell she wasn't lying. She was stunned. These 3 kids were turning out to be quite the surprise. And they still had Xiao Zhe to go, whose strength was anyone's guess. Little fairy doctor stepped aside, and Xiao Xun'er moved forward, her clear voice echoing in the tent. Xiao Xun'er, 12 years old, 6-star fighter, the tent, still reeling from little fairy doctor's announcement, fell silent. Everyone turned to the slender figure, their eyes wide with shock and awe. 12 years old and a 6-star fighter meant a potential that went beyond anything the academy had ever seen. Ruolin's fingers froze on the pen. She looked up, staring at Xiao Xun'er in disbelief. Without a word, Xiao Xun'er released a bit of her own fighting spirit, confirming it for Ruolin. I can't believe we actually found a treasure this year. Potential beyond S grade. That's probably a record for the academy. If nothing goes wrong, you'll be the most promising student in this entire recruitment, Ruolin said excitedly, but Xiao Xun'er shook her head, smiling sweetly. Let's wait until Brother Xiao Zhe finishes registering before we decide that, Teacher Ruolin. Suddenly, everyone in the tent was even more curious, if Xiao Xun'er, with her off-the-charts potential, was saying that, just how strong was Xiao Zhe? Xiao Zhe stepped forward, hesitating a bit. Xiao Zhe, 12 years old. If you want to know my strength, you'll have to check it yourself, Instructor Ruolin. He put his hand on the table, only fueling everyone's curiosity. Shui and I grabbed Xiao Yu, shaking her and begging. Come on, Yuer, please tell us Xiao Zhe's real strength. How can your family have so many monsters? First Xiao Xun'er, with potential beyond S grade, and now Xiao Zhe. Xiao Yu laughed nervously, but didn't say anything. She honestly didn't know Xiao Zhe's true strength. When she'd last seen him, he was a doja 9 stars, everything since then was just speculation. Ruolin, on the other side of the table, understood what Xiao Zhe was doing. He wanted to keep a low profile. This kid's got a lot on his mind. I'm going to see if you're just playing coy. Ignoring the envious stares of countless male students, Ruolin reached out her slender hand and placed it on Xiao Zhe's palm. Closing her eyes, she began to sense his strength. Xiao Zhe didn't resist. Full of curiosity, Ruolin began to probe Xiao Zhe's power. Strong meridians, water-based fighting energy, just like mine. The strength, well, the same as me, the same as me. Boom! Ruolin stood up so fast she knocked the table over. She stared at Xiao Zhe in horror, as if he were a monster in disguise. Everyone was stunned by her reaction. What kind of strength could make Instructor Ruolin lose it like that? No wonder. No wonder I couldn't see through you earlier, Ruolin muttered to herself, as the students around her waited with bated breath. Teacher Ruolin, don't keep us in suspense. What is it? Tell us. The suspense is killing us.